Welcome to Midlife Madness, where we get unfiltered and brutally honest about our midlife years. Okay, let's talk about food noise. So let me just start with a definition for food noise. So it says here, there's actually clinical studies that talks about food noise, and one of them says here, research has identified that food noise usually starts from cues, both internal, like feelings of hunger, or external, like sensory, social, or environmental factors. This can have several influences, such as time of day, lifestyle preferences, and genetics. So we had a client ask us to do a podcast about food noise. And so here we are because it is a major thing that our clients deal with and in the world, I'm sure. And so
Yeah.
what's
All
food
of
noise?
us, all of us deal
All
with
of
it,
us,
right?
all of us,
When I
yeah.
think about food noise, I think about Cubans say tiki tiki. You know, like when you're thinking about
It's
something
in
over
there,
and
yeah.
over again, and tiki
Yep.
tiki tiki tiki.
Yep.
That's what I think about with food noise. So
Yep.
what's your definition of food noise, Docs?
Oh my goodness. Food noise for me is kind of like, and I personally, that's something that I experience a lot of. Like that is a constant battle in my head. And I think I've talked to you guys about this. This is like, and so to me, it's like a craving that you can't get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's what it feels like to me. Like to me, it's like, okay, so I know that there's XYZ either in my house or at XYZ store because it's not even like when you get that into that like obsessive thought that you can't get out of it, you'll get out and drive.
Yep.
Right? Like, because we
Yes.
tell everybody, like, get rid of all the junk in your house. I'm like, oh, well, crap, I have a car. I could go find junk if, I'm a grown
Yeah,
up. I
I
can go
mean,
find
and
junk if
and
I
then it
want.
even becomes easier with like Uber Eats or DoorDash or something like that because they will DoorDash or Uber Eats just about anything. And even Amazon, you can get groceries delivered in a couple of
Yep.
hours,
Yep.
you know?
So it's, so that's what it feels like to me. Like to me, it's like that constant in the background craving. Like I just finished eating, but I'm thinking about what am I going to have for dinner? Or I just finished eating and I'm not physically hungry. Like I don't have food noise when I'm hungry. When I'm hungry, I go and eat a meal. That's not my problem with food noise, right? Because I can make super healthy choices with an actual meal that's in front of me. That's what I find so like ironic about the whole thing. Like I can sit down and have a nice piece of steak and some veggies and be perfectly content. And then 45 minutes later, it's like, what? It's like the little devil on my shoulder. It's like,
Yeah.
your
You
kids
know?
actually brought home Halloween candy,
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
I
I'll
feel
just
And then
have one
sometimes
piece.
and then my logical self is like, I do not need Halloween candy. I just had a very healthy lunch and I'm, sticking to this. And then the little devil on my shoulder is like, yeah, but it's just a couple M&Ms, and that's what it feels like to me is like a little devil on my shoulder that's just like, hey, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You can walk that off. You can work,
Yeah.
and that's where it gets me. So
yeah.
I don't know if it's the same for you, Dr. Donna.
No, my food noise is a little different. My food noise is, and I actually experienced it this morning. I had to run to Sprouts this morning because they have these certain tortillas that I like that I can't really find anywhere. Now, you guys know I get up early in the morning, and I'm pretty active early in the morning getting things done. And so I ran to the store. I was hungry by that time. And I knew I just wanted to go in and get that. And then I'm walking around and I'm like, oh, those bins look good. And look at that. And look at those gummies. And look at that chocolate. And look at this. And look at that. And I'm like, maybe I'll just get a little bit. And I'm like, nope. I'm like, walk out, get what you got to get and walk out. And that food noise, Dr. Marty, sometimes like I'm just like, oh, I want a piece of cake,
Yep.
you know? Um, but I won't, if I've eaten dinner, I won't jump to get it. Similar to yours, I won't do it. I'd rather have a meal.
Mm-hmm.
Knowing that, like, I had plain Greek yogurt at home with some fruit, I was like, that's what I really want. Like, I try to swap it. I try to swap out that food noise with something else. Could I have gotten something today at the grocery store and been like, okay, I'm not going to eat that? No, I switched it. I switched it in my head and said, this is what I'm going to have.
And
And
so,
I kept
Yeah.
saying that to
Yep.
myself.
yep.
You know, this is what I'm going to have. It's going to be a healthy swap. And I've been really trying to do that because, look, I mean, that food noise happens to every single one of us. And, you know, even when you're at a restaurant, this is why I tell a lot of my clients that if you're going out to eat and know where you're going out to eat, look at the menu ahead of time.
Plan ahead.
I'm
Plan
kind of
ahead.
a rare
Coach
bird.
Martha says she doesn't have food noise.
I don't. I am.
You're
And
lucky.
my dog Chloe decided to join us, but that's okay.
That's all right.
I'm one of the rare people that I have no food noise. I am on the other side of the spectrum where I don't think about food, so I have to make myself think about food. So
You're
I know
lucky.
that's rare, and I say it's rare because it is rare. Sorry, Chloe.
I see her.
Okay, sorry guys. Anyways,
She's got food
So-
noise going on. That's
Yeah.
what it is.
I think that there's a scale or a spectrum of food noise from like
Yeah.
your snacker to your somebody that actually has like psychological there's a psychological component of why they have food noise. It's more of a chronic thing.
Mhm.
I can shut off my video and get her down, but
No,
no,
she's
no.
delightful.
so
Go, Chloe. Go, Chloe.
so there's a whole spectrum of food noise, and there's some serious component to this where it actually makes somebody like non-functional or contributes to their obesity or to how they function in life, and they're constantly thinking about food. You see some of these people like in my 600-pound life, right? There's
Yeah.
like really chronic food noise, and then there's your PMSing snacker, right?
Right.
So you're PMSing and you're thinking about having a chocolate. There's like a whole spectrum of things, and over here in this clinical study that I was talking about earlier, it tells us like where it's coming from, and why it happens. And so like number one, it says there's certain medical conditions that causes food noise, which is very, very interesting. Number two, there are medications that cause food noise, right?
Yep.
There's medications, and here it says beta blockers,
A lot of
antidepressants,
antidepressants. Yep. That's what
bipolar
I
medications,
Yep.
they increase food cravings. Number three, which I think it's the most popular one, to be honest, it's stress. Stress
Mhm.
can
Yeah.
amplify food noise, leading to emotional eating and cravings for comfort foods. I think in our society, that's probably like number one.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. The next one is unhealthy habits. So growing up thinking about food is an unhealthy way of, or having a history of dieting can contribute to food noise. So, those yo-yo dieters that they do crash diets, you're juicing for 7 days in a row. And now you want to
Now you're
stuff your face.
starving.
Yeah.
Now you're starving.
Because you're depriving
Yeah.
your body. And all
Yeah.
you're thinking about in 7 days, the only thing you can have is juice, right? And then you see the commercial for, I don't know, something.
A burger.
And then it starts. It starts.
This
I
one is
think
another one too. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Marty.
No, that I think, I there's so many different factors that can cause you to have food noise, right? And I think it varies for everybody. And like you said, there's a big spectrum of it, right? There's a huge range from, PMS, from none to PMS to my 600-pound life, right? And I'm so incredibly grateful and blessed that I don't have the 600-pound life food noise.
Mhm.
Thank you. Because I can see how that could happen
Yeah.
because you spiral,
Yeah.
you start spiraling.
Yeah.
So yeah, all of that makes sense. And I think one of the things we need to do today, and we need to like help people strategize as to how to deal with food noise.
Yes. And then before we get into that, let me just share
Yeah.
the other kind of whys this happen, because it's important for the whoever is listening or watching that they can maybe say, oh, maybe that's why,
It's
because
not me, it's
Yeah,
something else.
right.
before you take action, you want to see what the root cause, like what the triggers are and why it's coming, and then attack it, right?
Yep.
So I said medical conditions, medication, stress, unhealthy habits, but look at the next couple, environmental influences. So
Mhm.
the variety of food choices and flavors in our environment can overload our senses, making us constantly think about food. I mean, think about all the crap that's available out there, that is so bad. And then also, like, they intentionally put sugar in things that shouldn't even have sugar. And
Right.
why? So you can crave it more. You can
Well,
eat
and
more.
chemicals,
Yeah,
and chemicals,
yeah,
they're
yeah.
putting neurotoxins and
All
neuroexcited,
those fast foods, all the fast foods are intentionally
making you
like
crave.
created. They add the different things in there so that you crave more, with it. And so you have it, and you have it one day, and you have it a couple days in a row. That's what you're going to wind up eating.
Yep. Look at the next one, information overload. The constant bombardment of nutritional guidelines, health trends, and contradictory information can make people second guess their food choices. That's interesting. And then this last one, food marketing, which is a huge thing.
Huge
Advertisements,
one.
Yep,
labels, and packaging contribute to food noise. So
yep.
like we talk about that at Inspire all the time.
Yep.
How labels are deceptive. Cauliflower pizza, but then you read the label, it's like, dude, it has 32 grams of carbs. Like, what
Yeah,
the
like
Yeah.
hell?
Yeah.
But
they threw some cauliflower into the
But
flour is what they did.
but you
that's
know
what
what?
they
You know
did.
what's even more interesting? Like becomes deceptive. Like I just had a conversation with somebody the other day about, like, it was a bottle, a 2 liter bottle of ginger ale. It said ginger ale, 0 sugar. It doesn't say diet ginger ale anymore because nobody wants the artificial sweeteners in it, right? So
So they
now they're
changed the
they're they're
name.
labeling it
Yep,
differently, but it's the same darn thing,
mhm.
and now you're having all the artificial sweeteners, which guess what they're going to do?
Make you
You
hungry.
know, they're going to make you hungry. They're going to
Yes.
mess up your metabolism, and you're going to want more of that. And so the front of the label is definitely marketing to draw you in.
So there's a
Absolutely.
psychological part of why people have food noise. Then there's a habit part, like cultural, right? That you were raised a certain way.
Mhm.
Then there is a part where it's external, like it says here, where these companies are very tricky and very intentional on the way that they label things, and they tap into people's psyche to get them to eat all this crap, and people fall for it, right? People fall for it, and like you said, Dr. Don, I mean, you have the sugar alcohols now that are really
Yeah.
bad for your gastric system and for all sorts of things, and it's like, it makes you wanna eat more. Then you have the artificial sweeteners. It's incredible. I mean, you can have a label for a certain food, from 15 years ago, and you have it from today, and if you put it side by side, you'll see the difference in the ingredients, like how much more
Yeah.
ingredients it has that you can't even freaking pronounce. Like,
Yep,
if you can't
yep,
pronounce it, that means don't eat it,
yep,
you
Don't
know?
need it.
So if
absolutely.
you're out there and you're like, "Man, what the heck is wrong with me? Why do I always
Mhm.
think about food?" It's not only necessarily because you have an issue. It can be because you have an issue. It can be because it can be from external influences, it can be from maybe even like
Chemical.
things that you
Yeah.
carry inside from when you were growing up. Like, for example, you gotta finish your plate. You gotta fit, or in the Cuban culture, you're too skinny, you're too skinny. So they feed you stuff to make you,
To
fatter,
fatten you up,
to
literally to fatten
fatten
you
you
up like
up.
cattle.
Like, yeah, and
Yeah,
there's some things in the subconscious
yeah.
that you don't even realize that's in there that is causing you to operate this way. There's like multiple things, that can be happening. It can be one thing or multiple things that can be happening, that this is why you can self-sabotage, you
Mm-hmm.
know, and or without even thinking about it, you're thinking about it.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I always say this, the most brilliant marketing has to be the 100-calorie packs, right? If you think about it, like a 100-calorie
Yep.
pack of Oreo, everybody's like, it's just 100 calories, I'm going to eat that. But what are you eating 100 calories of, and how is it affecting your body?
And how many 100-calorie packs are you actually taking
I,
down?
I,
Because,
and that was my
that's
next, and that
because
was
that's
my
the way
next
it
comment.
starts. That's the
Yeah,
way it starts, It's like,
yeah.
well, it's only 100 and I had 4 of them. Okay, that's
Yeah,
a
and
third of my calories for the day.
now I'm gonna skip my meal because
Yep.
I've had 400 calories, that should be enough.
Yeah.
But
But
you have to look at those ingredients,
It's
and
another, yeah, it's another topic, but it's not really about the calories, about the quality of the calories
right,
mm-hmm.
that
it's a
Yep.
matters.
whole other
Yep.
But
podcast.
let me
Yep.
just share this last one, because this is really, really interesting, because this is like the other side of the spectrum, meaning like this is kind of something that I've never talked about, and maybe we've never talked about, and it can be a thing. Excessive food prep. So excessive food prep can lead to perpetual thoughts and a preoccupation with food. So you have certain
Hmm.
personality types, like maybe you're really, 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 really detailed oriented type A, that are super, like intentional what they feed their body, and they're so kind of almost a paranoia
Yep.
that causes you to
Hmm.
like constantly think about food. That's something super like on the other side of the spectrum, right? Because we're
Yeah,
constantly talking
that's
about
Yep.
snackers and this and that, but what about the other personality type
The
that
hyper,
the
yeah, that's something I
hyper.
never thought about
hyper
either,
prepper.
right? Because I don't know about you guys, but I kind of prep, and my prep is different than your prep or somebody else's prep. I know what meals we're going to have throughout the week, right? And I never thought of it that way with what you just said. But can people become a little obsessive with their prepping and cause that food noise? Yeah, that makes total sense.
That's
I've
so
seen it.
different, right?
And I think,
Yeah,
and you know what the thing is, like with that, I think like people are being like intentional and actively trying to do something to probably try to reduce their food noise. If you think about it, right? If somebody's
yeah,
that focused and that intentional and that detailed into what they're trying to eat, and instead it's backfiring on them and they're just, constantly going on about it. That's very interesting.
yeah.
I,
But you know what? Go ahead. Go
no, no,
ahead.
no, go ahead.
I was just thinking, why not change that to a different way? And then
Mhm.
you've got somebody who's trying to change their unhealthy, right? And then becomes, I don't want to say obsessive, but becomes very meticulous in, a couple of weeks to make sure that they have good, healthy meals, because that may prevent them from having food noise, and it takes a little bit to get into a good, healthy habit. So that might be, a good start for some people to help reduce the food noise.
Yeah, and then it backfires on them and now they're thinking about it all the time. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
food is, I think food is such a visceral part of us as humans, right? We've evolved from being in the caves, having to hunt down our dinner, but our physical needs still continue to be the same thing, right? You still need to nourish, you still need to feed yourself. The options are so overwhelming everywhere right now, and they're overwhelming in terms of what you're being told is okay to eat,
Yeah.
all the
yeah,
things that are available to you. I mean, think about that way back when, paleo days, right? Way back when, you didn't have that many options. You ate what you caught,
Hmm.
yeah.
right?
It's true.
You ate what you caught. Right now, you go to the grocery store and catch about anything you want, good,
Yeah.
bad, or ugly. So, we need to put ourselves into a better mental place so that we could empower ourselves with the choices that we are making. And I think that that's where like the hyper prepper, that's where they're going, and maybe it backfires a little bit on them. But I also think, like you said, Dr. Donna, that for people that don't know where to start, I think prepping is probably a better idea than not, because, again, if you're not, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, and all these other things, right? And there's a reason why these are sayings.
Yeah,
Like,
I'm a prepper. I mean, I'm a prepper. I can tell you like what we're having like for meals, and do I make them ahead of time? No, I have my different meats and I have my different things already cut, done in the freezer, and my refrigerator is always loaded with vegetables and good healthy foods. So mentally I'm preparing for the week. People, like I said, people do it a little differently.
yeah,
And you can certainly become obsessive about it, and it can backfire, just like you said.
yeah. I
So
think we need
let's
to give, I'm sorry, coach, sorry, Martha, go ahead. You go ahead, your
so
turn.
let's go down the line of like things that people can do to reduce food noise. So like number
And that
one,
was going to be my comment.
it says, I know that's where you're going to.
Yep.
Practicing mindfulness is one.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
just like taking a step back, and instead of being reactive to like the emotion of wanting to go grab
And
or
that's what I did this morning.
wanting to go buy
Yep.
Yeah.
or wanting to, so that's where I always bring in like the 5-second rule. I had
Yep.
a client that told me, because this is hard for some people that have like children at home, and they have the junk food around for the kids even though you're trying to stay away from it. And I had a client say, they have Doritos, and Doritos is my thing, and I find myself like going for it. And I said, look, let's try to do this week. You know, the first step is get it out of the house, because your kids shouldn't be eating it either. But
Correct. I was going to
but
say that.
it's
That
Yeah.
was going to
easier
be, that was
Yeah.
going to be my comment.
it's
Yeah.
easier said than done for some people. And I said, let's exercise a 5-second rule, count down when you're about to take that action. Do like intercept, right? Like give your mind and your body time to pivot, and count down 1 or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And anything in life, like let's say you want to get out of bed at a certain time, and you tend to like, you know, just they be there, or if you want to take some action and you're having a hard time going for it, then do the countdown effect, because psychologically you're allowing yourself time to make a better choice. And that actually helped. And I'll tell you what I did in my house to help me with that is, at that time my daughter was living with me, and of course my husband. And the three of us eat differently. So in our pantry, I have plastic bins, and I label them Martha, Gus, and Danielle. And the things that I eat is in the Martha bin. The things that Gus eats is in the Gus bin. And then the things that Danielle eats is in the Danielle bin. And that helped me psychologically, and organizationally. When I open my pantry, I automatically just go to my bin. Everything is not mixed together on
Right.
purpose.
Right.
And
That's smart.
so that's kind of how you can take some action to help you be mindful. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? So
Um,
that's number one, practicing mindfulness. What, you guys have something to add to that?
well, I think it's easier to practice mindfulness when you don't have something medical going on behind it. We're talking about, because we've talked about this whole range, right? And sometimes people are on medications that cause them to be hungry. Sometimes people are, it's different. So there's in that, I'm going to speak on that a little bit. So if you are on a medication that causes weight gain, right? And we talked about it, some of the SSRIs, your a lot of antidepressants. There's a lot of medications, like there's a lot of them. So if you find that you haven't somehow I like turned off my video for
Video,
no apparent reason with my with my talking with my hands here, because you know I'm just going all over the place.
You're Cuban and you talk
I'm
your
Cuban, and it's just happening. Okay, so if you are on a medication, or let's say, okay, so let's talk through this scenario. Here I am, Marty, and I went to the doctor and he gave me something. And now I notice that I wasn't having XYZ cravings before. I wasn't having this food noise, and now I am. So you have a couple of options, okay? You know, first of all, talk to your provider, right? There might be an equally effective option that doesn't have those side effects. And usually there's an equally effective option that doesn't have those side effects. And it's up to you to advocate for yourself, right? Because if they're fixing your depression, but now you're going to weigh, you know, 400 pounds, what are they breaking, right? So you came in, you were depressed, but you didn't have high blood pressure, you didn't have diabetes, you didn't have XYZ. Now you're not depressed, but you have all these other things. So there has to be a better option. Okay. So talk to your provider, work through that. Like seriously work through that. You know, your doctors are typically very smart, but they're also sometimes giving you what they're used to giving. So work through that, you know? So that's the, you know, and you can take control of that. You could be empowered to take control of your health and to find options that work for you. You know, do that and advocate for yourself for a better option. So that's one thing. The other thing that I find works really well for me with food noise is get full of stuff you're supposed to be eating, right? Make yourself a nice meal that is healthy, that follow, you know, lean, green, maybe some healthy fats. Like be full when you're finished with your meal with the stuff that you're supposed to be eating. And then another recommendation that I have is if it's nice weather out, when you're done with your meal, go for a little walk. Like maybe just 15, 20 minutes. It has an effect on your body. It decreases your glycemic load. Even if you had a healthy glycemic index food meal, going for a walk after dinner or after lunch is going to help decrease your glycemic load. And when you don't have those glycemic spikes, you don't crave things as much. So get ahead of it. Get ahead of it. And that's what works for me the best is if I get ahead of it, because then you could do the countdown afterwards and ask yourself, am I really hungry? Like, listen, you know, listen to your body, listen for those cues. Okay, my stomach's not growling. I could actually, you know, I could feel my food right here. So clearly those 8 ounces of steak I ate are filling me up, you know, and then you can talk yourself out of, you know, going for the bag of chips or going, you know, making yourself a gallon of popcorn after dinner. That's what works for me. You know, so we have a couple of different strategies so far that we've put together, right? Plan ahead, look at the menus, do the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown to kind of like give yourself grace for a minute to make a better choice. Eat what you're supposed to
pantry.
Or organize your pantry. I mean, I get rid of stuff in my house. Like if I'm trying to eat healthy, nobody gets junk food. I'm sorry, not my kids.
I'm the queen of throwing things away.
I'm the queen of throwing stuff out.
Everything out.
I'm the queen of throwing stuff out. Like, for example, there's one, like, we don't drink soft drinks in my house. We never have. I grew up in a country that didn't have soft drinks. So when I came to this country, it was very easy to not have any either. So in my house, if you come to my house and you come over, you get water. You might get sparkling water.
My house too.
Yeah, you get sparkling water and you get sparkling water and you get regular water, right? There's your choices. And unless we're having people over that I know are soda drinkers, and you know, I'm trying to be a gracious hostess, and I specifically know, you know, this guy drinks Dr. Pepper. Okay, I'm gonna go buy a 6-pack, and that's it. When he's gone, he takes them with him. Like when I do stuff like that,
because I don't do that.
It doesn't happen often.
BYOB, bring your own beverage in my house.
No, but you know, typically I send it off with them. I'm like, listen, we're not going to drink this. Take it.
Take it
and
with you.
Take it with you because, even though in my house, we are not soda drinkers and we're not juice drinkers and we're not, every once in a while, one of my daughters will be like, Mom, can we get some juice so I can make smoothies? And I'll be like, okay, you get whatever juice you want. And then when it's gone, it's gone. Because I'm really big on not drinking my calories. I like to chew. If I'm going to have, 200 calories of sugar, I'd rather have a cookie than have 2 sodas.
Yep. So here
And
it says creating practicing mindfulness. We talked about
Mhm.
creating a nourishing environment, which we talked about, like the organizing the pantry, it says planning and preparing meals ahead of time, which Dr. Donna talked about, right? Just meal prepping is always a good idea. Limiting exposure to food triggers. This is a really important one because this is an action step that the listeners or watchers need to do, is like take a step back and really gain an awareness of what triggers you to want to eat, snack, like when you start feeling that bubble, like that
Yep.
food noise bubbling up, what happened at that moment that is causing that trigger, and write it down so then you can know how to manage yourself. So in order to limit exposure, you need to know what it is.
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
that is
Could it
And
be a
sometimes you have to
commercial?
be
Could it
brutally
be a
honest
TV
with yourself.
commercial?
What did you say, Dr. Donna?
I said, some of these triggers, could it be a TV commercial that
Mhm.
triggers you? Could
Mhm.
it be going to the grocery store hungry? Could
Yep.
it be,
Your boss.
reading something or scrolling on social media? Social media's got so many different things. Look, I know, like I look through it and I see all these different recipes.
And
You know,
sometimes they're great, but sometimes they're not.
talk about triggering that, that part of you that, oh, I want this now,
Mhm.
and the next thing you know, you're in your kitchen making something that you shouldn't really be eating.
And you're not hungry.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you know that some of these things are triggering, like you're watching TV and these commercials come on, get up, go change the laundry in your washer,
Stay away
go.
from your kitchen.
Yeah, go do something in that commercial time. If it triggers you going to the grocery store, then make sure that you eat a decent meal before going to the grocery store. Don't go before lunch. Don't go before dinner.
Yep.
The social media stuff, my goodness, that's hard to do, but you can scroll past it and not look at it. I'm not going to look at that now because I'm kind of in a funk, and if
Right.
I see that, it's going to make me want to eat.
I think the most common that I've heard is stress, which is the next point here, practicing stress management.
Mhm.
So stress
Yeah.
management is a huge, humongous animal that impacts, I would venture to say, most of society.
Yep.
Yep.
It's the same as, you know, limiting exposure to food triggers is actually part of that, where you have to you have to pinpoint where the stressors are, right? Where's your stress coming from, and how can you deal with that differently? So either make a life change in order to reduce that stress, that stressor, or if you can't, because maybe it's a project that you have at work, that is just maybe a
Sometimes
temporary
it's your
thing.
children.
You can't get rid of your kids,
Yep.
you're a teenager.
Yep.
Then what can you do to limit the stress levels? What action, or what are those moments in the day that you can plug in something for yourself to
Mhm.
limit the stress? So I think that's like a huge one for our
Mhm.
society. And I just had a conversation with a client yesterday about that, because she's extremely stressed out at work. Those cortisol levels are like up the roof, and it's causing her to want to enjoy something that she likes to eat, because it counters that feeling, right? It's like a
Yep.
momentary
It's a
dopamine
pacifier.
thing.
It's
Yes,
a
a
pacifier.
pacifier. Um, And so, but it's something that it's happening in this season of her life. It supposedly is going to go away, but how do you deal with it so you don't put yourself in a position where it's counteracting what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
another one that I think this is the next point actually. It says establishing healthy habits and routines. I
And
think this is
I was
this,
gonna say you got to get ahead of it.
yes,
Yeah.
this is a
You got to
huge
get ahead
one,
of it.
and this
Yeah.
is what I've encountered with the last 7 years of helping people is people are used to they have incorporated the habit of eating while they're watching Netflix. So it might not be
Mm.
a stressor. They might be trying to de-stress by watching TV, but it's almost like you in our culture, you have to like be eating something while you're sitting there watching TV. It's like
And
why?
that's such a
And yeah.
bad, horrible. And I have found myself, and I don't do it often. Like I've quit buying stuff that I could snack on while I'm in front of the TV. Because, let's say that you are giving yourself an easy evening. You're getting away from everybody. You're staying away from social media because that's triggering you. So you found this lovely, Hallmark Christmas movies. They're wholesome, they're sweet, they're amazing, they're relaxing. And then you ate a gallon of
Bag
ice
of chips or something, or
or
a
a bag
gallon
of
of ice
chips.
cream. Yeah.
Or, oh, I bought the low fat popcorn. Goodness gracious, 177 grams of carbs afterwards. You just threw your glucose levels into a spin, right? So I think being mindful. So there's action steps that you can take if you're listening out there and you know that you're guilty of some of these things. We all are, okay? Like this is not judgment. This is trying to help you create power within yourself to be able to say no to the little devil on your shoulder, right? Because that's how I think of it. I'm like, you have the good guy and you have the bad guy, like in the cartoons. Remember we used to watch the cartoons growing up, and um, so you have to figure out what your trigger is, whether it's an external trigger, whether it's a medication that you've been put on, whether your kids or your husband are driving you nuts, whether it's a work situation, whether it's something that you can eliminate or whether it's something that you're in it to win it. Like you can't get rid of your kids, but and they're going to continue to be stressful because that's living with other people. That's you could look at it however you want to. So you need to identify your trigger, right? So okay, so I know that when it's almost bedtime and my kids are screaming because they're tired and I still have to get dinner ready and I still have a project from work that I have to get on, I know that that freaks me out, right? So plan ahead. How are you going to handle that? What are you going to do differently? I know that when I go grocery shopping, if I'm hungry, you know, I will buy a cart full of crap. And then I get home and I'm like, oh my goodness, what did I do to myself?
Yeah.
Plan for that, get ahead of it. I know that if I see snacks in my house, I'm going to eat them. Do what Coach Martha does. Separate the bins. Put a lid on them if you need to. You don't have to look at it when you go in the pantry. It's not for you.
Yeah.
You could be mean like me and I'm just not buying it. It's that simple because as an adult, you do have a choice as to what you bring home. And there's always healthier alternatives for kids. Like, there's never a time that there's not a healthier alternative to junk food.
It's true. It's true.
Whether
You just have to change your reaction to those different stresses and change it for something other than food and snacks. Is it going to be easy to do that? No, it's not going to be easy, but it's much like creating a habit. You don't create a good you can create good habits, you can create bad habits. Like you can create the habit every time you put that Hallmark movie on, you want to have popcorn. But you can also create a good habit,
you can
you
learn to
know,
knit. You
and
want to do
yeah,
something with your hands, learn to crochet. My daughter is like the best crocheter. Dr.
yeah.
Donna crochets, right? Like do something with your hands. If that's like find an
Busy.
alternative that doesn't
Yeah,
include putting it in your mouth.
yeah.
Instead of sitting down for that movie with a tub of popcorn, sit down and fold laundry while you watch your movie. It's keeping you busy. it's doing something else. Create a reality for yourself where you are getting ahead of the stress. Take the right supplements for stress, get enough sleep, nourish your body properly as much as you possibly can. Meditate, pray, work out, all of these things, be hydrated, right?
Yeah.
All of these things slowly, but 100% certainly eventually start working from within to help you be less reactive in that.
And on a side note, we here at Inspire have a really good supplement
Mm-hmm.
that helps with, any cravings and things like that. And, if you're listening to us
We have
and
a couple of them.
we have a
We have
couple
a
of them,
couple of them. Yeah.
so call our Inspire offices and find out how we can help you with that. Maybe you're not eating well enough
Maybe you're not eating
that,
enough.
yeah, exactly, and so maybe what you're eating is causing the different cravings and things like that.
And
Yep.
let's go a tiny bit deeper. And I think we can close with this, but if you're sitting there, you're listening to this, or you're watching and you're like, man, I do all of these things and it's still like something that's constantly in my mind, then check your hormone levels, right? Um, check your hormones, because there's things that can be happening within your body that's causing this, they're triggering this to happen. There's so many different reasons why this can be happening, and so you got to crack your code in a sense, right?
Yep.
So check your hormone levels. If and if it really persists, like I have a client that no matter what, she could not bust out of this. Like we went through the whole process. We've done all the things to try to help her. And at the end of the day, I sent her to therapy. I sent her to go see a food therapist, a therapist that works with people that have a toxic relationship with food, and or an issue, an actual clinical issue.
Well, because
Uh,
sometimes that reflects, your
Yeah,
psychology, what has brought you to this point sometimes needs to be worked through so that you
yeah.
can break through it and get to the next level of your life. And that's
yeah,
that's
Past
reality.
traumas, past
yeah,
traumas,
Yep.
and
underlying
your upbringing.
there
Yep.
can be underlining chronic issues that haven't been tapped into
Address.
yet,
Yep.
addressed, that causes you to think that way. And that's why I say that there's a spectrum of food noise. And so it's okay to find help. When we sent that client to the therapist, it changed her life. And now she's back, and now she's doing great on the program because she was able to address that first. And then that has opened the door for her to conquer what she was trying to conquer. But she had to be really, really transparent and real with herself, and finally put herself in a position of seeking help. She needed professional help, and it's
And
okay to do
and
that.
it's okay.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we encourage that. I think all three of us would agree that our main goal is to improve the lives of whoever walks into our centers in whatever way we can.
Mhm.
Sometimes that's a health journey. Sometimes they come in for follow-ups and they just need a pick me up, right? Like I was at the office yesterday and I had my health coaches actually doing follow-ups, but I was literally sitting at the front desk and just saying hi to people and talking to them. And, they were like, we needed to talk to you today. I'm so glad you're here today because I just needed to hear your voice telling me XYZ. And, that's why we coach. That's why we have what we do, right? It would be very easy for us to come into our office and us give you the program and the supplements and send you on your way.
Right.
Actually, it would be easier, to be 100% honest. It's like, here you go, bye.
It doesn't work that way,
But it doesn't work
right?
that way. It doesn't work that way. And we
Fire
find that,
doesn't work that way either. That's
yeah,
not what we're about.
It's not what we're about, because we want to get to the root, and we want to give you sustainable weight loss, and we want to give you a program that's going to teach you habits that you can apply forever.
Yeah.
What we do is try to get you to have a healthier relationship with food, and try to know, when you can cheat a little bit and when you can't, and how do you maintain it, and what do you do for the rest of your life in order to improve your relationship with food and improve your health, right? So it's so important that that talking part, right? So you're talking about, you sent your client to therapy, and sometimes I feel like that's what we do in our office, to lesser, not quite as, uh, intense way. We give you some truth sometimes that you don't want to hear. But that if you accept them and you change your mindset a little bit, can literally be a powerful way to take control of your life and your health for the rest of your life. And that's what I
Absolutely.
think we do at Inspire.
And it's okay to seek help, and it's okay to, I this is something very simple that I tell our clients to do, is go to the dollar store and buy a little notebook, and write down what you think your triggers are, and then next to it write down what you can do to counter them. And
Hmm.
so
Oh,
take the time out, take the 10 minutes that it takes to really like dig deep, and write down those intimate things, that causes you feel like your triggers are, and then also take time to think of how you can counter them, because um, that is very powerful. And that
Hmm.
also, when you do that, it triggers your psyche. And when your psyche is aligned with your heart and what you do, then that's when you can conquer things.
Yeah.
So if you're listening, watching, go out and crack your code. You can do that. You can do that. All
Yep.
right, this was awesome, guys. I hope this was helpful, and we'll do much more content like this, because this is real and we all walk through it. And so we hope that this was life changing for you.